Imagine this, a teenage boy from the inner city, his sneakers worn from pounding the pavement, hustling to get home after another long day. This is Jamal, a 17-year-old kid who's seen more struggle than most people twice his age. Growing up in a tough neighborhood where opportunity feels scarce and every day can be a fight, he's learned to keep his head down, stick to his own business, and survive. But little does he know, today will be different. Today will change his life in a way he never expected. Jamal's neighborhood is no stranger to hardships, but his family keeps him grounded. His mom works 2 jobs just to keep the lights on and food on the table. His little sister Maya looks up to him like he's her hero, even though he feels far from one most days. Jamal's main focus is staying out of trouble, finishing high school, and hopefully making something better of himself. He knows the odds are stacked against him, but he's determined to beat them. On this particular afternoon, Jamal is cutting through a quiet street, not far from the upscale part of town, a place he doesn't belong, or at least, that's how it feels. He's heading home after running an errand, when something catches his eye. Lying on the sidewalk, near the edge of a sleek black car, is a wallet. It's expensive looking, not the kind you see often in his part of town. Hesitant at first, he glances around to see if anyone's watching. The street is empty. Curiosity gets the better of him. He picks up the wallet, and as he flips it open, his heart skips a beat. It's packed with cash, hundreds, maybe even thousands of dollars. Jamal could hardly believe it. But that's not all. The ID inside belongs to someone who lives in the kind of mansion you only see in movies, a millionaire. The name reads Ethan Sterling, a man whose face he's seen on billboards around the city. Sterling is a wealthy real estate mogul, known for his luxurious lifestyle and expensive tastes. For a second, Jamal stands frozen, the weight of the wallet heavy in his hands. His mind races. This is it, right? This could be his break. No one's around, and no one would ever know. The cash alone could help his family in so many ways, pay off bills, get some new clothes, even help with his mom's medical expenses. The temptation is real, and for a kid like Jamal, who's always had to scrape by, it's hard not to think about what this money could do. But then, another thought creeps in. What if he does the right thing? What if he finds this Ethan Sterling and returns the wallet? Would it even matter? Would someone like Sterling, with all his millions, care about a kid from the hood? Or would he just laugh in Jamal's face, assuming he had stolen it in the first place? Jamal stands there, torn between 2 paths, one that could bring a quick escape from his family's problems, and another that feels like a gamble with no promise of a reward. His pulse quickens as he slips the wallet into his jacket pocket, glancing around one more time. He starts walking, not sure where he's going, but knowing that whatever happens next is going to change his life forever. But what will Jamal do? Will he keep the wallet and the cash, risking everything to get a taste of a better life? Or will he track down Ethan Sterling and return what isn't his, hoping for something more than just money, a chance at something bigger? The decision is his to make, and the outcome? Well, you'll just have to wait and see. Jamal's mind raced as he walked, the weight of the wallet still heavy in his pocket. The streets around him were familiar graffiti-covered walls, run-down shops, and the faint sound of sirens in the distance. But tonight, everything felt different. Each step felt like it carried a new sense of responsibility, a decision that could shape his future. He kept thinking about the cash. Just holding it made him realize how different his life could be if he had that kind of money. His family wouldn't have to struggle anymore, at least for a little while. His mom wouldn't have to work double shifts just to scrape by. Maya wouldn't have to wear hand-me-down clothes or pretend like she wasn't hungry at the end of the month when groceries ran low. He could finally get those new sneakers he'd been eyeing, ones that didn't feel like they were falling apart every time he ran. But there was that voice in his head, the one his mom had instilled in him since he was young. Do the right thing, Jamal, she'd always say, no matter how hard life got. He knew deep down that keeping the wallet wasn't right. But what if doing the right thing meant nothing? What if returning the wallet didn't change anything for him or his family? The idea of tracking down a millionaire like Ethan Sterling, a man who had more money than Jamal could ever dream of, felt impossible. Why would a guy like that care about him? As he walked through the dimly lit streets, Jamal felt like he was stuck in a whirlwind of emotions. Part of him wanted to go home, show his mom what he found, and let her decide. But another part of him wanted to keep this secret. He needed time to think, to figure out what he was going to do next. Jamal's phone buzzed in his pocket, breaking him out of his thoughts. It was a text from his friend Marcus, asking if he wanted to meet up. Marcus was one of the few people Jamal trusted in the neighborhood. They'd grown up together, and while Marcus had a rougher edge, he was always there when Jamal needed someone to talk to. Maybe telling him about the wallet would help Jamal figure things out. He quickly texted back, agreeing to meet at the corner store. As he walked, he tried to push the thought of the wallet to the back of his mind, but it was no use. It felt like a ticking time bomb in his pocket, and every minute that passed made him more anxious. When Jamal reached the store, Marcus was already there, leaning against the wall with a hoodie pulled over his head. "Yo, what's up?" Marcus said, dapping him up. "Man, I've got something to tell you," Jamal replied, his voice low. He glanced around, making sure no one was listening. "What's going on?" Marcus asked, sensing the tension. Jamal pulled the wallet out of his jacket and handed it to Marcus. Marcus opened it, his eyes widening as he saw the stack of cash. "Bro, where'd you get this?" he asked, looking around like someone might come running after them. "I found it," Jamal said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It was just lying there, near some rich guy's car. The dude's name is Ethan Sterling, some big-time millionaire." Marcus whistled, shaking his head. "Man, you hit the jackpot." "So, what you gonna do with all this?" he asked, eyeing the money. "I don't know," Jamal admitted. "Part of me wants to keep it. I mean, it could help my family, you know. But the other part of me thinks I should give it back." Marcus frowned, clearly not agreeing. "Give it back? To who?" "Some rich guy who probably doesn't even need it. That dude probably wouldn't even notice it's gone." "You could use that money, Jamal. We all could." Jamal felt the pull of temptation even stronger now. Marcus had a point. Ethan Sterling probably wouldn't miss a few $1,000s. He could keep the cash, and no one would be the wiser. But something still didn't sit right with him. "I don't know, man. What if it backfires? What if this guy finds out and comes after me?" Jamal asked, voicing the fear that had been gnawing at him since he found the wallet. Marcus shook his head. "Nah, you're thinking too much, bro. Guys like that don't care about stuff like this. He's probably got 100 more wallets just like this one. I say take what you can and live a little." Jamal stood there, conflicted. Marcus made it sound so easy, but Jamal knew nothing was ever that simple. He'd heard stories about people in the neighborhood who'd made bad choices, thinking they could get away with it, only to have it come back and bite them. He didn't want to be one of those people. "I got to think about it," Jamal finally said, taking the wallet back from Marcus. "I can't just decide right now." Marcus shrugged. "Do what you gotta do, man. But if it were me, I wouldn't think twice." Jamal nodded, though he wasn't sure he agreed. He said goodbye to Marcus and started walking home, his mind swirling with even more questions than before. He could hear the sounds of his neighborhood as he walked, people laughing, cars honking, the distant thump of music from someone's speakers. But all of it felt far away. His thoughts were stuck on the wallet, on Ethan Sterling, and what this choice could mean for him. By the time he reached his apartment building, the sky had grown dark and the streetlights flickered on. He slipped inside quietly, careful not to wake his mom, who was likely resting before her next shift. His little sister Maya was already asleep in her room, her tiny frame curled up under a thin blanket. Jamal stood in the hallway for a moment, looking at the worn furniture, the peeling paint on the walls, the signs of a life spent scraping by. He pulled the wallet out again, staring at it in the dim light. The money was right there, so close. But what would it cost him in the long run? Could he live with himself if he kept it? Or would returning it open doors he couldn't even imagine yet? Jamal sighed, slipping the wallet back into his pocket as he sat on the couch. He knew he had to make a choice, but no matter which path he chose, it felt like there was no turning back. The next morning came too soon. Jamal woke up feeling the weight of the decision he still hadn't made. He got ready for school, trying to go through the motions of a normal day, but nothing about today felt normal. The wallet was still tucked away in his jacket, a constant reminder that he was standing at a crossroads. On the way to school, Jamal found himself thinking about Ethan Sterling again. What kind of person was he? Did he work for what he had, or was it all handed to him? Jamal had heard stories about rich people, how they didn't understand what it was like to struggle. But maybe Sterling was different. Maybe he would appreciate someone returning his wallet, maybe even help him out in return. Or maybe Marcus was right, and Sterling wouldn't care at all. Jamal was lost in thought when his phone buzzed again. It was another text from Marcus. "Yo, did you decide yet? Let me know if you need help spending that cash." Jamal smiled a little, but the message didn't make him feel any better. The pressure was building, and he still had no idea what to do. By the time school ended, Jamal felt like he was no closer to a decision. He walked home slowly, taking the long way to avoid thinking about what waited for him when he got back. But as he turned the corner onto his street, something made him stop dead in his tracks. Parked right outside his apartment building was a sleek black car. The same one he had seen near the wallet. Jamal's heart raced. Was this a coincidence? Or had Ethan Sterling somehow found him? The car door opened, and a man stepped out. He was tall, wearing a sharp suit, his face unreadable as he glanced around. Jamal froze, watching from a distance. Could this really be happening? Had the decision been made for him? Jamal's heart pounded in his chest as the man stepped out of the car and looked around, scanning the street. For a second, Jamal considered running, disappearing down the alley, maybe even leaving the wallet behind. But he couldn't move. Something about the whole situation felt surreal, like it was all happening too fast, too suddenly. He couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just a coincidence. The black car was the same one he'd seen. When he found the wallet, he'd remember that sleek design anywhere. This was Ethan Sterling's car. The man was tall, his face sharp, and his movements were precise, like someone who was used to getting what they wanted. He wasn't looking for trouble, that much was clear. But why was he here? Did he know Jamal had the wallet? Was he out looking for it? Or was this just a random visit to the neighborhood, something totally unrelated? Jamal's mind raced with 100 questions, none of which had an easy answer. He considered hiding, maybe ducking into a store or a friend's house until the man left. But it was too late. He'd already been spotted. The man's eyes were locked on him now, and Jamal couldn't shake the feeling that he knew. There was no way this was just a coincidence. Slowly, the man began walking toward him. Jamal's instincts screamed at him to run, but he stayed frozen, his feet planted on the sidewalk as the stranger drew closer. The man's eyes were sharp, not warm. There was something cold about the way he carried himself. Jamal could feel the tension building in the air, like the calm before a storm. When man was close enough, he stopped and looked Jamal over, his eyes narrowing as he sized him up. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Jamal could feel the weight of the wallet in his jacket pocket, like it was burning a hole in his side. His breath quickened as the man finally spoke, his voice smooth and controlled. "You're Jamal, right?" the man asked. Jamal's mind raced, and he forced himself to nod, his throat tight. "Yeah, that's me." The man smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. "I'm looking for something. Something I think you might have." Jamal felt his heart skip a beat. The man knew. He knew about the wallet. Jamal's fingers tightened around the fabric of his jacket, instinctively clutching the wallet. His mouth went dry, and he couldn't think of anything to say. He should have given it back. He should have done the right thing. Now, it was too late. The man's gaze sharpened. "I'm Ethan Sterling," he said, as if that would explain everything. "I think you found something that belongs to me." Jamal stood frozen, trying to process words, trying to find a way out. His mind went back to the conversation with Marcus, the money, the temptation. It all felt like it was spiraling out of control now. Ethan's eyes never left Jamal. "You've had that wallet for a few days, haven't you? I'll give you a chance to be honest with me. Hand it over." Jamal felt a surge of panic, but he couldn't let himself panic now. He had to think. His heart was racing, his hands trembling. What was he supposed to say? What was he supposed to do? If he gave the wallet back, would he end up in even more trouble? Or would this be the moment where everything changed? The minutes dragged by like hours, and for the first time, Jamal felt the full weight of the situation press down on him. His entire life had led him to this moment, his struggle to survive, his choices, his need to protect his family. Was this time he'd have to face consequences of those choices? Jamal tried to speak, but his voice cracked, barely above a whisper. I found it. I didn't know, I didn't mean to take it. Ethan raised an eyebrow, his expression unchanging. You didn't mean to take it? Jamal, don't play games with me. It's either in your pocket or it's not. So, let's be clear. I'm not here to play around. Hand it over and we'll call it a day. Jamal swallowed hard. His mind was racing, the reality of what was happening crashing down on him. Was this it? Was this the end of his chance for a better life? The end of the hope he'd been clinging to? He couldn't believe he was standing here, on his own street, with Ethan Sterling staring him down, knowing he had something of his. The weight of the wallet seemed heavier with each passing second, like it was pulling him down. He could feel the eyes of the neighborhood on him, though they weren't physically there. The whispers, the judgments, it was all so real, so suffocating. He glanced around, looking for a way out, but there was no escaping this. He was trapped. Ethan stepped closer, his voice dropping lower. Jamal, I don't want to make this harder than it has to be. You don't want to be in the kind of trouble that comes with this, do you? His tone was smooth, but there was an edge to it now, a hint of menace. You and I both know the kind of life you live. The last thing you need is a bigger mess on your hands. Jamal's heart thudded in his chest. He could feel his pulse racing faster. The man in front of him wasn't just a rich guy looking for his wallet. He was someone with power, someone who could make things difficult for him in ways he couldn't imagine. And yet, there was still something about this whole situation that didn't sit right. Was Ethan really just a victim in this, or was there more to the story? Look, I didn't mean to cause any trouble, Jamal said, his voice a little steadier now. I found it, and I didn't know what to do. I was gonna figure it out. Ethan paused for a moment, his eyes narrowing as he studied Jamal. You could have returned it. You could have done the right thing. Jamal swallowed hard. I wasn't sure if it was the right thing. I was thinking about it, but you didn't act, did you? Ethan interrupted, his expression darkening. Now, I'm giving you a chance to fix it before this gets worse. Hand it over. Jamal looked down at his jacket pocket, the pressure of the decision weighing down on him. He thought about his family, how this could change everything. If he gave the wallet back, would he be able to get out of this unscathed? Would he have to live with the consequences of his choices, or was this the point of no return? As he reached into his jacket and pulled out the wallet, he could feel his hands trembling, his breath shallow. He didn't want to look up, but something inside him forced him to meet Ethan's gaze. It was as if the man was daring him to make a move, daring him to act in a way that could change the course of everything. Ethan took the wallet from his hands, his expression unreadable. He didn't say anything for a long moment, just stood there, studying the contents, before finally he looked up at Jamal. You made the right choice, Ethan said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. But there's more to this than you realize. You don't know who you're dealing with. Jamal blinked, unsure of what he meant. Was this over? Or had he just stepped into something even deeper? Before Jamal could ask, Ethan slipped the wallet into his coat pocket and turned, walking back toward his car. He paused just before getting in and glanced over his shoulder, his eyes narrowing again. This isn't over, Jamal. You've just made the first decision in a much bigger game. And with that, he got into the car and drove off, leaving Jamal standing on the sidewalk, more confused and uncertain than ever. Jamal stood there for what felt like an eternity, the cold air biting at his skin, his mind spinning. What had just happened? What game had Ethan been talking about? As the car disappeared into the distance, Jamal realized that his life was about to change in ways he couldn't begin to understand. Jamal stood there, staring at the empty street, long after Ethan's car had disappeared into the night. His pulse still thudded in his ears, and the weight of what had just happened settled heavy on his shoulders. He didn't know if he should feel relieved or terrified. Ethan had left with the wallet, nothing more said, but the look in his eyes, the words he'd spoken, haunted Jamal. You don't know who you're dealing with. What had Ethan meant by that? Was he just trying to scare Jamal? Or was there something bigger going on that Jamal couldn't see yet? He rubbed his hands over his face, trying to shake the feeling of dread that had settled in. The night was cold, and the sounds of the city around him, the distant hum of traffic. The occasional shout from down the block felt distant, like he was in a world he no longer belonged to. As he turned to head back home, his phone buzzed again. It was a text from Marcus. "Yo, what happened? You get rid of it, or what?" Jamal stared at the message, his fingers hovering over the keys. Should he tell Marcus what had just gone down? He wasn't sure if he even understood it himself. The whole encounter had been too strange, too surreal. He texted back simply, "It's over." He got the wallet. Marcus responded immediately, "Bro, I don't know if you should be done with it. Something doesn't sit right with me. I was just talking to Tony, and he said he saw some of Sterling's people around here earlier. They were asking about a kid. Sounds like you might have been in the wrong place at the wrong time." Jamal's stomach dropped as he read the message. His mind raced back to when he first found the wallet. Ethan's car had been parked just down the street. But Sterling's people? What did that even mean? Had Ethan been watching him the whole time? Was Jamal just a pawn in something much bigger? He didn't like where his thoughts were headed. He quickly replied, "What do you mean, Sterling's people? Who are they?" Marcus didn't respond right away, and Jamal felt the knot in his stomach tighten. Every second that passed made the situation feel more dangerous. He kept glancing around, as if expecting someone to jump out from the shadows. His eyes scanned the street. Was there someone watching him now? It felt like there was an unseen force, something beyond his control. It was like he was in over his head and sinking deeper by the minute. Finally, Marcus texted back. "Tony said they were asking about a kid with a wallet. They didn't say your name, but with that car and everything, it doesn't take a genius to put two and two together. I think we need to be careful, Jamal. That guy, Sterling, ain't just some rich dude. People say he's connected to all kinds of business in the city. Bad business." Jamal's phone slipped from his hand as his heart raced. The air around him suddenly felt thicker, heavier. Bad business? That could mean anything. Was Ethan just a millionaire who got rich through legitimate means, or was there something darker lurking beneath the surface? The way he'd acted, the cold, calculated tone, told Jamal there was more to the man than met the eye. He crouched down and picked up his phone, his hands trembling. He didn't know what to think anymore, but one thing was clear: this wasn't just about a lost wallet anymore. It was about something much bigger. And whatever that something was, Jamal had unwittingly walked right into it. As he stood up, his eyes darted to the alley near his building. The shadows there seemed deeper than before, and Jamal had the distinct feeling that someone was watching him. He turned and quickly walked back to his apartment, every step heavier than the last. When he reached the door, he stopped. Something felt off. The door, which was usually slightly ajar, was now closed tight. He never closed it, all the way his mom always did when she was in. But tonight, it was completely shut. His gut twisted with unease as he slowly reached for the handle. He pushed the door open and stepped inside. The apartment was eerily silent, too quiet. The lights were off, but the soft glow from the streetlights outside filtered through the window, casting long shadows on the walls. His mom's coat was still hanging on the hook by the door, but there was no sign of her. Maya's room was dark, the door shut tight, just as he'd left it. Jamal's pulse quickened, the tension in the air growing heavier with each passing second. Where was she? He checked the kitchen, then the bathroom, but she wasn't there. He grabbed his phone and texted her, hoping for a reply, but there was nothing. Panic began to rise in his chest. Something was wrong. His mom wouldn't have just left in the middle of the night without telling him. And Maya, she was only a kid. Jamal's heart raced as his thoughts spiraled out of control. What if someone had taken them? He heard the soft sound of footsteps behind him. Jamal whipped around, his breath catching in his throat. Standing in the doorway of the living room was a man. Not Ethan, but someone else, someone Jamal didn't recognize. The man was tall, dressed in a dark coat, his face obscured by a hood. He held something in his hand, something shiny that caught the light a knife. His eyes were cold, calculating, and his presence made Jamal's skin crawl. Jamal's hand instinctively moved to his pocket, his fingers brushing against the wallet. His stomach churned, but he knew there was no time to think. The man took a step forward, and Jamal took a step back. "I don't want any trouble," Jamal said, trying to keep his voice steady. The man's lips twisted into a slight smirk, but he said nothing. His eyes never left Jamal. He took another step forward, the knife gleaming in his hand. "You have something that doesn't belong to you," the man said, his voice low and menacing. "And now, you've gone and involved people who weren't part of the deal." Jamal's heart sank as he realized that this wasn't just about the wallet anymore. This wasn't some ordinary thug or a random person from the neighborhood. This man, whoever he was connected to Ethan, connected to the danger that was closing in on him. His mind raced. What was going on? Why had this man shown up here, in his home, with a knife? Was this the price for keeping the wallet? Or had Ethan sent him to make sure Jamal didn't talk? Either way, Jamal knew the stakes had just gone through the roof. He had to make a choice, and fast. Run? Fight? Or was there a way out that he hadn't seen yet? The man took another step forward, and the tension in the room reached a boiling point. "Where are they?" The man whispered, his eyes narrowing as he took in Jamal's expression. Jamal felt a cold shiver run down his spine. Where were they? The man wasn't just looking for the wallet. He was looking for Jamal's mom and his little sister. Jamal's heart was racing, his body tense and frozen in place, as the man took another step closer, the knife now fully visible in his hand. Jamal could feel his pulse hammering in his throat, the fear clawing its way up from his stomach. His mind was on overdrive, trying to figure out what to do. The man wasn't just after the wallet. He was after something more, something far more dangerous. The man stopped, his eyes narrowing as he studied Jamal. There was no compassion in his gaze, no mercy. "Where are they?" he asked again, his voice low and filled with malice. "Your mother and sister. Where are they?" Jamal's mind spun, his gut twisting with a new gnawing sense of dread. They had his family. His mother, Maya, both were missing. He hadn't even noticed how long they'd been gone until this moment. His hands were shaking as he tried to hold on to his composure. He couldn't let this man see how scared he was, not now. But where could they have taken them? Why would they have gone after his family? "Who are you?" Jamal finally managed to ask, his voice trembling. "What do you want?" The man didn't answer right away, but his eyes flickered as he stepped closer. "You know too much now. You didn't just find a wallet, Jamal. You found something valuable. Something that's worth a hell of a lot more than money." Jamal swallowed hard, his mind racing through every possible scenario. Ethan, Sterling, bad business, everything was starting to fall into place. But the pieces didn't make sense. Why would his family be involved? Why now? The man's eyes flicked behind Jamal, as if making sure there was no escape route. Then he took another slow step forward, and his lips curled into a tight smile. "You see," he said, his voice almost amused, "you're not just in over your head. You've been living in a world you didn't even know existed. Sterling's business, it's bigger than just money. It's bigger than what you think. And now, because of that stupid wallet, you're part of it. Your mother. Your sister. They're just collateral damage in all this." Jamal's mind was reeling. He couldn't understand how this was all connected. The wallet wasn't just a wallet. It was something more, something dangerous. But why was he, someone from the hood, in the middle of it? He wasn't a part of that world. Or at least, he hadn't been until tonight. "Who the hell are you? What do you want from me?" Jamal spat, his voice trembling with anger and fear. The man's smile widened. He stepped closer, the knife now inches from Jamal's chest, but Jamal wasn't backing down. He could see the smirk on the man's face, the kind of smirk you wear when you know you've already won. "You've seen too much, Jamal. You touched the wallet. You've put yourself in danger, and now you're going to have to pay the price." The man raised the knife slightly, pointing it directly at Jamal. "The question is, will you survive to make it through this mess?" Jamal's heart was pounding, his hands shaking, but he wasn't going to go down without a fight. "I don't know what you're talking about. I just found the damn wallet." The man's eyes darkened. He lifted the knife, and Jamal knew that he had only moments before things got worse. The tension in the air was unbearable. Every muscle in Jamal's body screamed for him to run, but he couldn't. His family was still out there, and no matter how much danger he was in, He couldn't leave them behind. Suddenly, Jamal heard a sound behind him, a soft shuffle, a creak of a door opening. His heart stopped. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw his mother standing in the doorway, Maya in her arms, safe, unharmed. Jamal blinked in disbelief. How had she gotten there? Jamal's breath caught in his throat, but the man didn't seem to notice. He was too focused on Jamal, his eyes gleaming with that same menacing gleam. "You still don't get it, do you?" the man hissed. "This isn't over." But just as he took another step forward, something unexpected happened. Another figure emerged from the shadows behind him, Ethan Sterling himself. Jamal's mind raced as he saw Ethan approach, his usually calm and collected demeanor replaced by something darker, more intense. He was no longer the rich businessman who'd tried to intimidate Jamal earlier. Now, there was no question Ethan was in on this. He was part of the web of danger Jamal had found himself tangled in. The man holding the knife turned sharply at the sound of footsteps. He saw Ethan and immediately stiffened. There was a brief, silent exchange between them, something Jamal couldn't quite catch. A look, an unspoken understanding. The knife-wielding man took a step back, clearly nervous now, his posture shifting from confident to uncertain. Ethan's eyes locked onto Jamal's. "I told you," he said, his voice dark and cold. "This isn't what you think, but it doesn't have to end badly. There's a way out for you and your family. All you have to do is listen." Jamal's mind spun. His mother and sister were safe, for now. But the danger was still very real. Ethan had just walked in with all the answers, but that didn't mean Jamal could trust him. He didn't know if Ethan was going to try and make a deal, or if he was setting them up for something worse. "Listen to me," Ethan continued, his tone lower, more persuasive. "You found something more valuable than just cash in that wallet. It's worth millions, maybe billions. But it's not the kind of thing you can just keep without consequences." Jamal shook his head, trying to process the chaos around him. "What are you talking about? What's in the wallet?" Ethan glanced back at the man with the knife, who was now watching them both warily. "What's inside the wallet is a key. A key to something bigger. A secret, something I've been trying to protect for years. But it got out. And now, people are looking for it. And for you." Jamal felt a cold chill run through him as Ethan's words hit him like a punch. A key. A secret. People are looking for it. This was more than just a mistake. This was the beginning of something far bigger and darker than he could have ever imagined. The knife-wielding man's hand twitched, and Ethan, sensing the rising tension, took a step toward him. "Look, we don't need to do this. Not tonight. Not with them here." He motioned toward Jamal's mother and sister. "You want out? You can still leave, but it won't be easy." Jamal was paralyzed, his mind reeling. Ethan's words didn't make sense. But one thing was clear. This wasn't just about the wallet anymore. It was about something bigger, something that could change everything. As Ethan spoke, Jamal's phone buzzed in his pocket. He glanced down, seeing a message from Marcus. "Yo, bro, I don't trust this. Don't do anything stupid. There's more to this game than you know." But before Jamal could respond, Ethan's gaze flickered to him, and his expression hardened. "It's time to make your choice, Jamal. This ends tonight. Either you join us, or you keep running. But trust me, no one runs from this." Just as Jamal was about to speak, a loud crash echoed through the apartment. A new figure had entered the room, a woman, tall, dressed in black, and holding a gun aimed directly at Ethan. The woman's eyes were sharp, and her voice was cold as she spoke. "Enough, Ethan. It's time to end this charade." Ethan's eyes widened in surprise. Jamal's mind went blank. The woman's face wasn't familiar, but her presence, her authority was undeniable. And that's when it hit him. The final twist. This wasn't just about a wallet. This wasn't just about money. It was about power. A battle over something far greater than anything Jamal had ever imagined. And the game had only just begun. The woman's gun remained steady, aimed directly at Ethan, but her eyes flickered briefly toward Jamal. His heart pounded as the tension in the room grew thicker by the second. Ethan's expression turned from shock to a cold, calculating smile. The air seemed to freeze around them, and Jamal felt like he was caught in a game far beyond his control. Ethan lifted his hand slightly, as if to show he meant no immediate harm, though Jamal could sense the danger simmering beneath his composed exterior. "You're late, Sam. Very late. I didn't think you'd make it here this fast," he said, his voice smooth but with a trace of irritation. The woman Sam, it seemed, didn't flinch. Her eyes never left Ethan. "I wasn't going to let you play this game with him, Ethan," she said. "You've gone too far. We agreed the last time would be the last time. But you always push it further." Jamal's mind was racing. Who was this woman? And why did Ethan seem so rattled by her presence? He couldn't keep up with all the twists and turns, but one thing was clear. Whatever he had stumbled into was far bigger than he ever could have imagined. He glanced over at his mother and sister, who were still standing in the doorway, bewildered but safe for now. Maya clung to her mother's side, looking up at the scene with wide, frightened eyes. "Who is she, Ethan?" Jamal asked, trying to keep his voice steady, though the panic was rising in his chest. "What's really going on here?" Ethan's eyes flickered with something. Was it regret? Or fear? For the first time, Jamal saw a crack in his calm, rich facade. "Jamal, you don't know what you've gotten yourself into." Ethan's voice was sharper now, more forceful. "This is bigger than you and me, bigger than anything you ever imagined. This is about power. And control." Sam took a slow, deliberate step forward. "Power doesn't belong to people like Ethan, Jamal. It never has, and it never will. He's been playing with lives, including yours, and it's time to put an end to it." Jamal blinked. The pieces were finally starting to fall into place, though they were still incomplete. This wasn't just a matter of money. This was about power, manipulation, and control over things that Jamal had no knowledge of until now. He had stumbled onto something far more dangerous than he ever anticipated. And in a way, it was a miracle that he, his mother, and Maya were still alive. Ethan's gaze darkened, and he slowly lowered his hands. "You're making a mistake, Sam. If you stop me now, there's no turning back. You won't just lose everything you've worked for. You'll lose your life." Sam didn't flinch. "If I let you keep going, we all lose everything. You know that. You've always known that. But you've never cared about the consequences, only about the endgame." Jamal felt as if he was standing in the eye of a storm, unable to process all the swirling emotions, confusion, and danger around him. He didn't know if he should trust Sam or Ethan. Both had reasons to be here, but neither seemed to be the kind of person Jamal should align with. Suddenly, Sam turned her gun toward the man with the knife, who had been lurking in the shadows the entire time. His eyes widened, and he took a step back, his expression one of panic. I don't want to be part of this," he stammered, holding up his hands. "Just let me go. I don't know anything." Sam didn't hesitate. "You're not leaving here, not without answers. And you're not getting out of this alive." The man's breath quickened. "I was just following orders. I didn't know this was gonna happen." "You knew exactly what you were doing," Sam said coldly. "You were helping him cover up his mess." The man swallowed hard, his fear palpable. He glanced at Ethan for some kind of support, but Ethan was silent. It was clear that whatever power the man had once had in this situation was gone. Sam had completely taken control of the room. Jamal watched in silence, feeling the weight of the moment press down on him. This was not what he had expected when he'd first found the wallet in the street. He had thought it was just a lost item, something he could pawn to get a little money to help his family. But now, everything had spiraled into a mess of lies, deceit, and power struggles. "Jamal," Sam said softly, her gun still trained on Ethan, "you don't know what you've really found. That wallet, what's inside it, it's not just a key to Ethan's empire. It's a key to something bigger. Something he's been hiding from the world. Something dangerous." Jamal frowned. "What are you talking about? What's inside the wallet?" Sam's eyes locked with his. "That wallet isn't just a wallet. It's a map to something that could change the balance of power in this city. And Ethan, well, he's not the only one looking for it." Ethan chuckled darkly. "You're too late, Sam. I already have it all under control. You think I'm the only one who can take what's coming? You're mistaken." Sam shook her head. "You don't understand, Ethan. There are people who are far more dangerous than you. You've been playing a small game, but you're about to get caught in the crossfire of a war that you can't control. Jamal's head was spinning. He had no idea what Sam was talking about, but it was clear now that the wallet was far more than he could ever have imagined. It held secrets, secrets that could destroy people or save them. He was holding a piece of a much bigger puzzle, and now, with his family in the crosshairs, Jamal didn't know what to do. He glanced over at his mother, who was still clinging to Maya. "What do we do?" he whispered, more to himself than anyone else. His mother looked at him with wide, worried eyes, but then something shifted in her gaze, something he had never seen before. She stood up straighter, her voice calm as she whispered back, "You need to trust them. Trust Sam. It's the only way we get out of this alive." Jamal's stomach churned. "What do you mean, trust them? How can we trust anyone in this mess?" His mother took a deep breath. "Because I know her. I've known her for years. She's the one who's been trying to protect us from the beginning. She's not here to hurt us. Ethan is..." Jamal's heart dropped. His mother had known all along. She had known that this wasn't just about money. He couldn't process it all at once, but he knew one thing for sure. Whatever he did, he had to make a choice. Sam looked at him, her gaze intense. "Ethan's not going to let this go, Jamal. But you can. You can still make the right decision and walk away from all of this." Jamal took a deep breath. He glanced at Ethan, who was standing still, watching him with that same cold look in his eyes. And then, Jamal made his choice. He didn't know if it would work, if it would lead to safety, but it was the only choice he had left. "I'm done with this," Jamal said. "I don't want anything to do with your game." Ethan's face darkened. "You'll regret this, Jamal. You and your family will be dragged into this, whether you want to be or not." "I don't care," Jamal said, feeling a surge of anger and clarity. "You're the one who's messed everything up, and I'm not going to be part of it anymore." For a brief moment, the room fell silent. Ethan's eyes flashed with something, whether it was anger, resentment, or defeat. Jamal couldn't tell. But it was clear that Ethan wasn't about to give up without a fight. Before Jamal could react, Ethan lunged at him. The moment stretched out like slow motion, the knife coming toward Jamal in a flash of steel. But Sam was faster. In a swift motion, she fired a single shot, and the knife slipped from Ethan's hand, clattering to the floor. The sound of the gunshot echoed through the room, and for a moment, Jamal thought his heart had stopped. Ethan froze, his eyes wide with shock. He looked at Sam, then at Jamal, his expression unreadable. "This is it, huh?" he said, almost as if he was speaking to himself. "You've won, Sam." Sam nodded once, her expression hard. "It's over, Ethan. It was over the moment you tried to play God." Ethan said nothing, but he didn't resist when Sam handcuffed him and turned him toward the door. Jamal watched, his breath still heavy from the rush of adrenaline. It was over. For now. Sam turned to Jamal, her gun still in hand, but she lowered it. "You're free, Jamal. You and your family." Jamal nodded, but the weight of what had just happened pressed down on him. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew that tonight had changed everything. He had made it through the storm, and somehow, he and his family had survived. As the tension in the room eased, and the sirens of approaching police vehicles filled the air, Jamal realized that the real journey was just beginning. The secrets of that wallet, the power and danger it held, would eventually come to light. But for now, he had his family. And that was enough. With one last glance at Sam, Jamal turned to his mother and sister, who were now making their way toward him, still in shock but safe. Maybe, just maybe, they could start over.